This is Empire Sports Alliance, Unfiltered. No fluff, no filters, just the real side of sports. We're talking athletes, coaches, agents, doctors, executives, the people behind the scenes who actually move the needle. From building careers to surviving the grind to winning off the field. This is where real conversations collide.
Andy Sutton, NHL veteran, defenseman. How are you, Andy?
Good, guys. How you doing?
Good. Doing great, doing great. So, yeah, we appreciate you being on. In terms of like how we normally start is like kind of, we would definitely like to know a little bit about your journey in terms of obviously you played in the NHL for a very long time. In terms of how did you get started, right? You're from Ontario originally. So, what was your journey like?
Well, I mean, like most that end up going long, it's a mixture of bouillabaisse of things for sure. I started early, like a lot, and I have a dad. He's still alive, thank God. But he loves hockey above all things, and being from a place where that's sort of the only thing you're introduced to as a child in the '70s, especially. I took to it quickly, and we forged a bond in it, and spent a lot of time dreaming about it, I guess, as a child. And, I was a good player when I was young and, had phases where I struggled. And, I deal with this a lot because I coach now. It's the struggles are really what allowed me to endure. This so much of I think modern parenting and coaching in general, and the lives of my I can only speak for my children, but very blessed and without a lot of adversity to deal with. It doesn't really equip you for the long haul, and certainly doesn't equip you for like high level of success. So, I feel thankful in retrospect at the adversity that I endured. So, I started out playing. I was a defenseman as a young player, and scored a lot. Yeah, as a young player, I think around 10, 11 years old, they switched me to forward because they thought because I scored points that I'd be better as a forward. So like,
Were
I
you on
feel
the
like I
wing?
was constantly in an identity crisis. I played the wing, I played center. They moved me all over the place, and I stayed at forward until basically I got a scholarship. Played at St. Michael's College in Toronto, and that at the time that was like the preeminent place to get a scholarship. And I don't even know how I limped in there. By the grace of God. In retrospect, I had a lot of help that I didn't realize at the time, and went into St. Mike's, and best I could muster was a partial scholarship at a small engineering school in northern Michigan. But it ended up being a blessing in every way. I was able to convert the rest of the scholarship through academics. My family didn't have a lot, so every little bit of that helped, and it felt like a nice way to contribute back. So I ended up playing for 4 years at Tech, but not without a lot of challenge in there too. I got switched back to defense my sophomore season after a pretty lackluster first couple of years, and that took a year. But junior year, I had my first of 16 surgeries over the next 18 years. You want to talk about transformation and trying to come back to the fullness of self, but. That junior year wasn't much to write home about. Struggled a lot playing in the WCHA on the Olympic ice, being a big guy chasing around, a lot of guys that frankly had better skating skill than I did. But I'm a quick learner, and I don't like to get beat. So I, figured out strategies and things that would work for me. And I went into my senior season. I actually got an offer with the US Navy to go take an internship after the junior season for the summer. And I turned it down and decided to give it one last kick at the can. Was exactly how I thought of it. And if you'd asked me that year if I was going to play pro, I would have told you like, no, yeah, maybe I'll toil in the East Coast League for a year or two. We'll
Yeah.
see what happens. But I hadn't intended to do it as a career, and there
And,
was really nothing showing that it was gonna be a career for me.
and what year was
Yeah.
that at? What age was that in?
So I was at that point in time when I got switched to defense. I was 21 years old, and then I went into my senior campaign, and everything I touched worked. I won WCHA Defensive Player of the Year. I was an All-American that year, and I had 14 NHL teams offer me the max to sign as an undrafted 6'7", 240-pound defenseman. So I ended up choosing to go to the Sharks. They had a few guys that had been around a good long while, and I thought I had the fastest trajectory to playing in the NHL. And I actually made the team out of training camp my first year, which was crazy. But they also tried to turn me into a fighter. So I was fighting all the heavyweights, and talking about an identity crisis. you're barely 2 years into playing defense. You make the NHL as a defenseman, and then they've got you, lining up against Scott Parker and Stu Grimson and Matt Johnson and these guys, and having to figure out how to do that. And then I kind of got typecast a little bit. I think there, I struggled too with a chip, I think, on my shoulder, and I did some things there in San Jose that probably could have gotten me pushed out of the league. Frankly, I I don't even know if you want to get into it, but it's
I would
pretty
love to
crazy.
get
I mean,
into it, as a matter of fact.
well,
What you can share.
I can't even believe it in retrospect. It's embarrassing, and I would never want my children or my players to have this type of attitude, but I had it. I was competitive. I wanted it, and I a second season they only played me like the first year I played like 40 games, and then they couldn't send me down anymore. So I was in the press box. Like the second year, I think I played like maybe 30 games or something like that. And so 50 games, I was in the press box, but all 50 games that they were going to bag skate you. And, I think that they thought overall they needed to harden me because I was big, but probably not as nasty as I needed to be for them at the time in the late 90s, if you guys remember back what the game was like.
Yeah.
So we had an assistant coach then named Paul Baxter, and I think Paul still has the NHL single season record for penalty minutes. He was a tough man, and he took it upon himself to try to break me. So every skate, every practice, he was in my grill and in my face, and he kind of came at me. At least I perceived he came at me in a drill that he thought I was doing wrong, and I already hated him because of what was going on. And he got about a foot too close, and I don't know what the instinct was, but I punched him right in the throat and dropped him. So I go home that day, and I'm like, that's it, I'm done, I'm finished. Nobody from the team called. I didn't even call my agent. I was like, I don't even know what this is going to do. So I show up at practice the next day, and nobody said anything to me. Nobody called me in an office. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I better get ready and get on the ice. So I go out for practice, and I actually think in retrospect, it's what they wanted all along, because Baxter
Well,
came up to me that day and said, yeah, and he said, Andy, he said, yesterday was my fault. I pushed you hard, and I pushed you too hard, and yesterday was my fault. So it was water under the bridge. And then the season went on. I still didn't play much, and I was wound tighter than a snare drum, just the way they were bagging on me and stuff like that. And we got into the playoffs that year, and I hadn't played in a long time, and they skated me real hard in St. Louis. And I actually tore a pec. I'd been shooting so much and sprinting so much. I tore a pec, and they basically told me I was lying. Yeah, they told me I was lying, it really sent me over the edge. And I went into Dean Lombardi's room in Dallas and called him a chicken shit. And he sent me home that year from playoffs, and I really thought I was done this time. And they exposed me in the expansion draft, and God willing, again, I got picked up by the new upstart Minnesota Wild. I got to be part of that franchise there, and got to get a chance to go back on defense, and so I really had the best of intentions. Had a halfway decent first year, and then lo and behold, Jacques Lemaire tried to change me back into a forward again. So I was in this crisis of faith, and I just had a feeling that I wasn't going to make it as a forward. And I went and told Mike Ramsey that. When you think about him and who he represented to me at the time as an assistant coach, and just where he came from on the 80s Olympic team and the career he had. And I looked at him after a game they had called me in to play defense in Detroit, and I hadn't played in weeks. I thought I played well, but I felt like myself, which was the main thing. And I went to him after the game. I said, Rammer, I just think I'm meant to be a defenseman in this league. He looked at me without batting an eye, and it was like, you'll never be a defenseman in this league. And that was all I needed. That was a piece I needed to, and it was a foundational piece, because it really forced me to have ownership in my process. And I went in the next day, and I can't even believe I did this at 24 years old, and walked into Doug Risebrough's office. And again, like Hall of Famer, I don't even know how many Stanley Cups. Yeah, they had so many Stanley Cups there, like Jacques Lemaire, Mario Tremblay. I mean, it was a crazy place to be. But and I said to him respectfully, I said, I really think I'm meant to be a defenseman in this league, and if there's anywhere you could trade me that would want me on defense, I would sincerely appreciate it. And he didn't say he would. I think he respected me just for speaking candidly. And 7 days later, we were on a road trip. I landed in LA. My agent was standing on the tarmac. That's back before they were, you're going to bomb every airplane. But he was standing there waiting for me on the tarmac, and he said, grab your stuff. You've been traded to Atlanta. But
That was
bottom
a
of the
what
NHL,
year was that, Andy?
just a rough
Atlanta. I
team.
mean, they came in the league. The Thrashers came into the league, what, 97?
Yeah, I think 97 or 98, and I went there
Yeah.
and it was I got traded in I think January of 2000 or 2001, somewhere in there.
Was
The
Kovalchuk
team
still
was
there?
brutal, really bad. What's that?
Was Kovalchuk still there?
Well, yeah, we had Kovalchuk and Heatley, and
Yeah.
that was crazy to come in and be with those guys early in their
Yeah.
career. And I ended up struggling a lot when I first got there because I hadn't played defense. I really had an identity crisis. It's hard to do anything well when you don't know who you are or what you're supposed to do. I was also conditioned, which is crazy to think about, like conditioned where errors meant you were in the press box or you were sent to the minors, or so like I had this mindset of like fear-based playing, and that doesn't work. I mean, fear-based anything doesn't work. So it wasn't going well. Thankfully, the coach at the time got fired and they brought in Bob Hartley, and Bob was a notoriously tough coach. And he had his first meeting with me. He pulled me in, and in his French Canadian way, he's like, "Big Suts." He's like, "Here's you have the potential." He's like, "We're gonna find out." He goes, "I'm gonna play you 30 minutes a night, and you're gonna slit your own throat." So he did, and that was a big piece for me because he just played me. He played me. If there was an error, he played me. And I found myself, it was the very best part of my career where I was frankly unstoppable. I was able to pair my offensive skill sets with just being a hard-nosed defender, which allowed me to play against the top lines and play all the critical penalty kill situations. He even had me on the power play. I could shoot it over 100 miles an hour, and he'd even had me on the power play with those guys. And I was scoring shorthanded goals and power play goals and just, playing over 30 minutes a night. And it was, uh, it was highly formative and really allowed me to carve out an identity for myself that I was able to carry for the rest of my career. That said, I also found myself at different times as a, 5, 6, 7 defenseman even after that. So it was always about kind of, fighting for what you believe in and just trying to renew yourself every day to put your best foot forward. And, then I blinked and it was 16 years. And I literally can't even believe that it was as long as it was. And, it felt like it flew by in a minute. And now it feels like a complete lifetime ago. It feels like a different person was on the journey just because I've been out now since I retired officially in April of 2014, and I've been working in the business, off and on for the last 12 years. And I feel like my entrepreneurial life has just been a completely different life, but I definitely take all of the things I've learned along the way and just the resiliency and willingness to do the hard things and, energy to get up and just attack the day with the things you learned the day before. And it's definitely served me well in a life outside of playing the game for a living.
Question: What you said when you were being offered the Navy internship and you turned it down and you're like, "Yeah, I'll give it one more shot, but I'm not going to play." What turned around? What happened that gave you that unbelievable season to get picked up by all the teams?
I realize this now, and it's always it happens every single time that I am like that I've been up against something where it's really not working. I remember as I turned back into defense in Atlanta, and this is before Hartley got there in the first season. We were in Montreal, and I hadn't been playing well. We were a bad team, so you're already exposed, right? And I remember being in Montreal, and I was like dash 2 or 3 in the start of like first period. It was brutal. And then I go chase somebody up the ice and like drop my gloves and try to fight him. And he just skates away. So I'm standing in Montreal, the center ice, dash 3, like gloves off. And I pick stuff back up and we go in the locker room. And I remember just breaking down crying right in the locker room. I didn't know what else I could do and it wasn't working. So in that instance and heading into the senior year, it's that piece where you're like, it's not, some people say like, "Oh, I don't care, so I play well." That's not what it is. You have to care to a very high degree, but you have to detach yourself from fear and from a results based mindset. Because if you just go and trust your instincts, which I had crafted my whole life and never really fully trusted, anytime I was up against that wall, I would just remind myself of just dropping that backpack full of bricks that we all carry. We all load a backpack full of things, thinking we need to carry them, and all they do is slow us down and hinder us, and they don't let us become our fullest self. so anytime there was those two moments in particular, other ones along the way, I still do it now in business, like on the daily almost, where you just got to learn to just let these things go, and stay true to your belief system and self, and then just hunt like a dog, man. You can't expect anything if you're not willing to be at the forefront of the hunt, breaking trail. That's the other piece. It's just like, just go after it. Trust your instincts, believe in yourself, and you also, there's people around you, God included, that are always by your side. So I think in a lot of ways, as a young athlete, too egotistical, felt like I was in charge. In retrospect now, you realize how much control you don't have. But what you can control is that mindset, that mindset of just, freeing your mind more than anything, and making sure you unencumber yourself to be able to unlock your full self.
Yeah. No, great advice. I mean, it holds true for everything for sure.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, most
like,
definitely. Yeah, go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Ryan.
Sorry. No, please, Andy, come
No,
on.
please. I'll talk all day. I don't
Oh,
want to do
well,
that.
no, I love it. So I played a little hockey. I partly grew up overseas in Switzerland. So you mentioned a very important piece of the game, fighting. And I think it's for the casual fan, especially if you now, you watch the playoffs. I think now the game is a bit different than when you started playing in the 90s, right? Could you kind of explain a little bit in the importance of fighting in the game? I truly believe in that, but I think for a lot of people, I think I talk to a lot of people, they go watch a hockey game for fighting, right? They're really excited. But the importance of fighting in the game, can you kind of touch on that? And you've been involved in several of them.
Well, it's fundamental. It's fundamentally important in my mind. The way that the game has gone now, where I don't even know what this is these guys are doing. For starters, they're diving all over the ice. They get whacked in the face. It's literally identical to soccer almost. Like, they're not injured, but they're faking injury. Diving all over the ice. And then these scrums where, like, every guy's tough now. They never take their gloves off. Nobody really fights, and you're letting a bunch of European guys like punch you in the face and stuff. I just can't. I have trouble watching it because it was a great game when there was an integrity and a value system that prioritized the line, right? We're pros. We're trying to skirt the line. We're always trying to play on the edge, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you're supposed to be great at anything. You've got to find that edge consistently, get comfortable there, and straddle that line as much as possible. Now, that being said, like, and it was no exception for me, even at my size. And I always fought to protect a teammate, and I always fought to protect my style of play. So, if I was going to play hard against the opponents, which is what I tried to do, invariably there's often somebody that would come and be like, "Hey, you've gone too far." I'd be like, "Okay, well, what do you want to do about it?" Because this might not go well for you, like it might not go well for me, but there's a moment there where there's a check-in, like, "Hey, you've been hitting our top players or this or that," and it was actual fight, like fighting. I mean, like, they're being punched in the face is very persuasive, like, to not, not doing the thing anymore. So if you're going to keep doing the thing, you better be ready for that. That doesn't exist anymore. So now you can kind of get away with, I don't know, almost anything, frankly, and everyone's in on it. It's like, and it just looks like I don't even know how to describe it. Everyone's just like taking little cheap shots at the glove, even like they're fighting now with the gloves on, and we just need, like what happened with Tom Wilson, even in the Olympics,
Yeah.
and he crushed that guy, and then he let that guy just like punch him in the face, and it's incomplete. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody elbows Nathan McKinnon in the head, I personally don't care where you're playing. That guy needs his ass beat, and it needs to happen on the spot. It can't linger over. Or like what happened with Austin Matthews this year.
Yes.
That needed to happen in the moment. That game should have taken an hour to finish after that happened, because it should have just been melee after melee. Like, you send a message, and the Toronto culture is obviously flawed because that didn't happen. And then, it's all premeditated heading into the next time. And then you got to have Max Domi go and like be the guy that
Yeah.
sets the stage. It doesn't make any sense. The culture has to have it integrated so that in the moment, it doesn't matter who's on the ice. You sort that out, because there were plenty of times I'd step in and maybe get my ass beat. But at the same point in time, it's like when your child does something wrong, you're not going to critique them tomorrow. You have to critique them in the moment in
Can
order
you
to
walk us through an
induce the
example
change.
during your time, like a teammate got hit of some sort? It's like,
Well, I'll give you a personal. They only gave me a 2-minute penalty, and I come out on the ice. I come into the play. I get a D-to-D pass. Before I can even turn and look up with the puck, Craig Berube had his glove off and knocked me out cold. So, and this is where the culture was. So at that time, the referees saw what I did to Aginla. They understood the policing. We both got 5 for fighting.
okay.
So, it wasn't an
You never got
instigator.
shot in, right? You got cold. You got.
I didn't even get a chance to defend myself. It wasn't a square up and do it. He was going to take the cheap shot and see what happened. Now he caught me and knocked me out. So if he had caught me and didn't knock me out, it probably would have been a different situation. But there was no suspension. There was no additional penalty or anything like that. But you learn in those moments very quickly, like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to be ready for Berube. And back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I mean, every team had 4 or 5 guys that could chuck them pretty good. So you just had to be on your toes. And I think it was better for the game. I think it was better for the style of play. And that integrity, that honor code was integrated in a way that I think was very material to the game and a core inclusion that they really need to fight to keep.
So when you went from college to the pros, you're this young big kid, think you're macho shit and everything. How different was the fighting in the NHL to college? And the story you just told us, was that the first real aha moment you had? Like, shit, I'm in the NHL. This is different now.
Well, and there was no fighting in college. Now, I was always the kind of player, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be proud of this or what, but just the way I was, I didn't know how to play defense or practice defense without playing guys hard. And I always felt like disdain towards my own teammates. Sometimes you practice together so much, like even Ilya Kovalchuk, like I used to take runs at him in practice sometimes because I just hated letting he float around. He wouldn't do stuff. So we'd do like these one-on-one drills and I would just try to light him up. And a lot of times that would end, certain ways, so when I came in, they had a rookie camp. This was before the fall camp in San Jose, and I don't remember who the guy was, but we were both skating off, and at center ice, he jabbed me as we were going off, and we fought at center ice. And I didn't think much of it. I didn't know who was there, who was watching, who was whatever. I beat this guy really, really bad. Really badly at center ice, and I didn't think anything of it. Went about my deal. I come off after the scrimmage, and I come around the corner, and John Ferguson, who some people say arguably is like one of the toughest they've ever played, and another Montreal guy, big time Stanley Cup winner. He comes up to me and he's frothing at the mouth. He's like, "That's what we need around here." Like it was like, this is it. So I think they're like, "Holy crap!" Like we signed this guy. I scored, I think, like 40 over a point a game in my last year in college. So I think they thought they were getting like a offensive defenseman, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this guy can do this too." And I had a couple more fights in that preseason, fought a couple like NHL tough guys and did really well. And then it was kind of like the perfect storm because our tough guy was Brant Myers, and at the time he was in the NHL substance abuse program, and he tests positive like literally right before the start of the season. So we don't have a tough guy, and they're like, "Oh, well, we'll just put this kid on the wing. He's played forward before, and we'll line him up against all these knuckleheads and fight him." So that was sort of how it blossomed, and it was kind of a tough tag to shake, but I think it also served me well because it obviously taught me how to do it. Like there were back then. Nobody took like UFC or boxing back then. Like it was just survival, and so I learned how to do it, learned how to protect myself, learned how to throw them, and I think it ended up serving me well throughout my career because people knew I could do it. And then, if I needed to or wanted to, and there were nights I just wanted to, you just had a chip on your shoulder and someone was going to get it, like those nights were great too, because you could just bring that persona onto the ice and just feel like indestructible. And so I think overall it served me well, but it was an evolution of self that was precipitated by duress. I mean, it's adversity and you if you either rise above it or you sink below it. If I'd have sunk below it, I wouldn't have made it. So that's sort of it was a very important, vital piece at the beginning.
So you played obviously for a different franchise and all that stuff. Were there any particular, maybe teammates or like, situation where you remember like, yeah, I want to beat the shit out of this guy. I want to start it with this guy.
Well,
Any favorites?
Not really. And I tried to always play with a high level of honor and respect.
Sure.
And but at the same point in time, like I wouldn't back down from anybody. So I think when I went to different teams, and I remember like when I went to Minnesota, because we had like Jeff Odgers was there and I had fought him before, and Sean O'Donnell was there and I had fought him before. And like there were guys, and you have this immediate bond. Even Matt Johnson was there and I had fought him before. And we had a very tough team. And it's a brotherhood like you can't describe. It's probably like how these UFC guys are. It's just a code of honor, but for doing that, like bare knuckle fighting is crazy, right? So like to show up and do that, you have street cred with your teammates, and it was a required element, and it really like it really ingratiated you into the team landscape very very quickly because of what you were willing to do. So it was built in too that you got more respect and there was more honor in amongst your team and how other teams would view you. So that's where like the fabric of it had it, right? And it was in the game, and then now it's really not. They've almost eradicated every player that can do that, and the guys that are left just beat the shit out of everybody. So it's like it's kind of changed the landscape a little bit.
And I guess I don't need to ask you about your opinion in regards of the helmet. Still, have to keep on the helmet for fights. Changed it a few years ago.
I mean, it's like they're wearing riot gear, right? They all have visors on too, and they pull it down, and I don't know. The helmet should probably come off because I would say more injuries happen in the fights with the helmets than anything else. I mean, your hands are just like hamburger meat. And if you fight often, like your hands are churned up. You waste so many punches on the helmet. Guys know how to turn and use it as an impediment to the punch. It's part of the style. So I don't know. I think if you're gonna fight, you should take your helmet off and have a proper fight. Yeah, have a proper fight.
But I'm assuming after the game, you could go out with that guy, have a beer.
Yeah, I remember in one of my last seasons, I got suspended 3 times one year, and I stepped up on a young Gabriel Landeskog, and he got a suicide pass from my good buddy Shane O'Brien, and Obi threw the saucer pass. I stepped up, and Landeskog, being such a great and powerful skater, even at a young age, it was crazy, guys. Like he sort of saw me or felt me. All the guys from the heads up, the guys from the bench scream, and he's a very intelligent player. He just got barely out of the way, ended up breaking his nose, but he was down. I didn't get like full impact on it. And then Obi comes down. He's like, Sutsy, we got to go, buddy. Make this look good. Right. So we're fighting each other, but it's kind of like, it's the only one I ever had that was like, not like, I want to hurt this guy. Like I was like, this is my good friend. Like we play golf together in the summertime. And so we're chucking and we're both like trying to make it look good, but not trying to punch each other on purpose. And then I jersey jabbed him, and then he's trying to punch me, and I'm trying to punch him. I call him from the bus. He goes, you MF, he goes, you closed my eye up. See that big black eye, closed his eye up. And I said, well, you threw the pass, man. It's your fault. So, but I mean, it was instantaneous like that, where I think there were always guys that were willing to come in and stick up for teammates, especially.
So you made a comment earlier. You had 16 surgeries.
Yeah, I've had I think 18 now. I was always in a walking cast. I fractured my feet and hands and face and everything. I mean, I was a shot blocker too, right? I really was. Rich Pilon was probably one of the first to like really go down a certain way, like on his side and block a lot of shots. I patterned that. Craig Ludwig, they said he bent his shin pads to be 8 inches across. So I heated mine up with a torch because I just wanted to be in the way. They paid me to get in the way. So I wanted to do everything I could to be in the way. So I learned how to block shots a certain way. Like I was down, my right leg was at 90 degrees, my left leg was flat on the ice, and I would turn sideways and just take those shots all the time. And it didn't always go well. I can assure you that puck moves, and it's pretty unrelenting. So it hits you in all kinds of different places, and then just playing a physical game, contact game. I mean, I had four rotator cuff reconstruction just from the fighting and all the hitting and things, and knees and ankles. I dislocated tendon in my ankle, and I've got 3 plates in my right foot and 2 in my right hand. And it was you wore it as a badge of honor though back then. I don't know what it was. But I can remember when I went into, and I had been playing good for 5 or 6 years, and I signed with the Islanders, and I went in, it took me a little while to sign, and I know why in retrospect. I didn't even see it this way, but I said to Garth Snow after he'd signed me, and I signed for a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. It's like unfathomable amounts of money, but I said, "Oh, you got a good deal on me," because I assumed I was worth more. And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You average 40 games a year. You're our highest paid defenseman per game played." He's like, "Zip it." And I was like, "Not touche, Garth. That's on you."
So
So
I'm from Long Island, so I'm an Islander fan. I remember
Oh,
the
you
things.
can't tell. You can't tell at all, Ronnie.
No, okay, all right.
so
Can you just go ahead, Eric?
I was going to say, I work with a lot of MLB players. What in the hockey world, because back then, obviously, you were set up to fight and all the injuries and whatnot, how was the training room and the staff? Was it easy to go and get treatment and get taken care of? Or were you trying to be a hard ass and say, I don't need this shit and I'm good and not deal with?
Well, I'll say this: the staff with every team I ever played on is world class. I mean, they have people that get you ready, keep you ready, help you, fix you, treat you, train you. They do an amazing job. But the heart of the athlete too is a lot like I'm good, I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm fine, right? So there's so much of that, and I actually think that in a lot of ways is probably one of the cultural aspects that's changed a lot. The modern player is completely in touch with his recovery, is completely in touch with his entire process, is completely like mindful of the fact that there's life after hockey. My generation, at least I was set this way. I was like, I'm in the moment right now. I'm not worried about tomorrow. And then, oftentimes that meant playing through a lot of things. Like, I mean, I played with broken feet. I mean, I just barely get them in the skate, and you just suck it up. And it's amazing how much pain you can learn to endure, and like your teammates value you, and your role on the team is important, and you don't want to leave the lineup. I think it's probably because of where I came from, but even at, as long as I played, I never felt safe. I never felt like my job wasn't going to be taken by somebody else, because I mean, there's a new crop coming up every year. Somebody's stuck their neck out to find this player, sign this player, whatever the thing is. So like, there's a number of people with a vested interest in the promotion of this player. And, I was always like, I'm not coming out unless I'm dead, like I'm not coming out of the lineup. So you just learned how to play through things. And I think a lot of players still do that, but I think there's also an element of and I actually think it's better where the players are more in tune with themselves, because there were times when I played and I shouldn't have, and it actually, like, as a heading into unrestricted free agency a couple times, it cost me a lot of money too, because I've come back and played under situations where the average fan or other team doesn't know why you're not playing as fully as you can. We're seeing it a little bit with Cale Makar right now. He's got something wrong with him for sure. Like, there's something going on, and you just hope that you can restore quickly enough to become full again.
Well, it's important. I mean, I have guys like I'm flying out in 2 days for a baseball take care. It also makes it so that your career lasts longer, because if you're performing better and
Yeah.
recovering faster and getting over these injuries with some of the technology we use
Mhm.
now, you're going to have a much longer career, as opposed to being a hardhead guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's some logic that, playing 40 games a year also helps you make it to 16 of them. So I don't know which is right or which is wrong. I definitely deal with a lot of stuff now, right? Like, I always rehab stuff well. Like, I was always at the forefront of supplementation and really even treatment. Like, I'm a big ART guy. I think it's the greatest thing you could ever do for your body, for an athlete, to keep everything long, keep everything moving together. I'm still a proponent of that. It's about the only thing that keeps me moving. So it's like, it's a fine line. I think it's different for every player. The European players in my generation always kind of like, they had a little bit of a softer approach to it, because I think they also came up in a way where, like, if you felt something was tight, you're just like, oh, I'm just going to stay out until this isn't tight anymore. Especially if it was getting close to the world championships and you weren't going to make the playoffs. A lot of those guys would just be like, all of a sudden have a phantom injury. But, I don't think much of that happens anymore. I think it's widely accepted that players are meant to be optimized, and if they're not optimized, there's at least a conversation that's being had as to what to do about it.
Yeah, the only hockey guy I've really interacted with and know is Wayne Gretzky. So obviously he's more old school also.
Well, you also
Well,
have
yeah,
Marty McSorley, to Andy's point, in terms of protecting him, right? So
yeah. Well, and others. I mean, that older school guy, even older school than me, they were even tougher because they didn't have the same access to the trainers we have today. These guys in house that can do acupuncture and do all kinds of alternative treatments and things, and then there wasn't access to like an ART guy to fly in and like work on you for a couple of days before a big game or something. Like there's just a lot more available, and just lasers and different things you can buy at home to speed your own recovery, hyperbaric chambers that athletes can buy, supplements, peptides, different things that guys can do to be able to restore and optimize. I mean, that's definitely the landscape now.
When I fly out, I take a PEM machine with me. I do dry needling. I do the blood flow restriction, the ART, all the adjustments. I'm adjusting shoulders, ankles, knees, backs, necks, all that stuff. So yeah, you get it all.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's such a gift, someone that can understand the body like that more, even better than you do, like especially when there's injuries present, and be able to help you restore the tissue really more than anything, because you're obviously laying down scar tissue, and you've got to get it all not only realigned but lengthened, and then turned back on. That muscle has to be turned back on. The body's incredible at operating in inefficiency, and it can actually make it where the inefficiency is completely normalized, where the body's like, oh, we'll just leave these switches off. So, flipping those switches back on and getting everything firing properly is imperative.
Yeah.
you were talking about some of those Euro players. Obviously, I mean, they're growing up playing on a bigger rink, right? So, I mean, you must be true. I mean, if you have a national competition going on like the World Championship right now, I mean, you let them know that you think they're soft, right? I mean, when you're on the ice.
Well, I wouldn't say, I would say that things have changed a lot now. I
Yeah.
don't, I don't think that you see too many players out there that are soft. I mean, these guys are tough, man. I mean, these are gladiators, right? Like there's nobody out there that's soft. I don't think, at least not that I'm
Okay.
seeing. I don't think it's
Well, I'm not
I don't
talking
think it's
about being it
culturally.
being reality. I'm talking about you getting under their skin verbally.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely had moments over the years where, we had to call out certain guys for sure. I mean, it's just yeah, there's nowhere to hide in an arena. That's the thing too, right? Like you're on display. You really are a modern day gladiator. I mean, you're down. There's no corners for a reason. It's like there's nowhere to hide out there.
Let me follow up with another question there. Are you familiar with the Spengler Cup out in Davos at the end of in December? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
w-
I can see you guys. I can see Ronnie. You did absolutely no research, but I played for the ZSA Lions during the lockout of
yeah,
2005,
I know.
2006. So I was actually there for all of that.
Yeah, so during that tournament, it's normally fun end of the year. How often were you playing hungover?
That was not my style. I never played hungover. And I don't believe anyone's doing that now unless you got a problem. Yeah, I do. I think that existed more like 70s, 80s and prior. Like
Okay.
I think that was part of the culture where guys would get into the city and they'd go drink a bunch of beers. There was no knowledge. I mean, I can remember skating in the 90s from Kingston, Ontario, and we had a great skate. Had a ton of pros that would go back there for the summers, and it's actually really like another foundational piece for me. I got to skate with like Kirk Muller and Doug Gilmore and Scott Arneal, and I mean there were so many. Wendell Clark would skate with us, and I wasn't even probably good enough at the time to skate with the guys, and I couldn't afford it. It was like whatever, a couple $100 a week or whatever it was. And Kirk Muller actually covered my costs for the first 2 years. But I can remember Wendell Clark coming in and skating with us, and guys didn't do anything in the summer. If you had an exercise bike, you were like an innovator. Like you'd like ride the bike like down by the dock for 30 minutes, like zone two, whatever you did. You weren't sprinting. I mean, so guys would come in, and like Wendell enjoyed the pops during the summer, and he came in and he was probably 40 pounds overweight. And we didn't start skating until August, and he wore a garbage bag suit every single day that he skated. Like that's what guys thought was getting in shape, that like just suffer, just sweat like crazy, and you could make it all go away. When in reality, that's not the case. So it evolved very, very quickly from, the mid late 90s and then into like where I think starting in the early 2000s and things, like every pro player has a trainer, they've got a nutritionist, they've got this and that. And, even culturally, like I've heard in Colorado, like Nathan McKinnon sets the diet plan. If guys are not drinking because your leader, you're the best player on your team is saying like, this is not what we do here. So the modern athlete is a lot more laser focused. He's also a lot more educated on like what optimizes his performance.
Yes, let's talk about. I mean, obviously, you're in business now. You talk about equipment, especially in a sport like hockey, super expensive, right? So, what do you see from an equipment perspective? Again, what your company does, but then also youth hockey today, in terms of like somebody young getting started within hockey.
Well, I mean, the costs are crazy for hockey in general. There's a general lack of ice time, and like so many things in this country, the costs have just gone bananas in the last 5 years. We've lost sense of what value looks like. And so when you're looking at $600 an hour, $550, $600 an hour for ice time, which is what it is around Nashville here now. I heard Greater Toronto's even more. That cascades down to the families. And then, every athlete now, which is great for my business, they want everything custom. They want all new this, they want that. The moms want things. So it's like, we solved the problem by really like plugging in the operational system for big associations. That's what Barbero does. And we come in and we organize everything: online stores, customer service, end-to-end fulfillment, follow on products, really the entire customer life cycle. Over 12 months we manage it, and it's an engine that's not going to stop, because I think now versus like when I was a kid, I think every parent thinks their kid's like the next Connor McDavid, which is pretty crazy. But there's a general like lack of understanding as well in a lot of regards as to like what to do, what to give the child, and what, like, even what the coaches need to convey. So there's still a lot that needs to be done to, I think, to make the experience better. And I pride myself on looking at that every day, and I'm a coach also, so I get to spend time on that side of it in an association and as a coach. And then ultimately, like, working in the business and caring for associations all over the world, we just learned so much about how to care for the customers.
That's all. So, but again, from an equipment perspective, if somebody's like, where do you see like the youngsters in terms of like what is the cost from just the equipment perspective? I know ice time is
Well,
one thing.
there's a lot of learn to play programs. I think when kids are just starting out, if you can ever get with someone that can give you some private instruction and
Yeah.
get you on your way, and then like, you just got to get out there and suffer. You got to get out there and I say it to my kids all the time: if you're not falling down all the time in practice, you are not finding the edge. You are not finding it. And if you can't find the edge, you're never going to be able to do what Nathan McKinnon does on his blades. You're never going to be able to control what it is you're doing to the degree that you're going to be able to probably make it. It's fundamental to fall. It's fundamental to forge that system that allows you to restore yourself and get up and keep fighting. So I think access is the first and foremost most important thing when you're young. And then surrounding yourself with people that can help you understand the DNA of the game, because that's the other thing. Like, I don't play around with this with my kids. I say flat out, if you don't fashion yourself a savage, you should go play a different sport. If you don't want to get into consistent one-on-one interactions and figure out how to dominate another person, you're playing the wrong sport. You're doing the wrong thing. You're wasting your parents' time and everybody's money. So it's just, it's the type of thing that you have to have the right mindset for this game. Like I said, you're down in an arena. You're literally, the mission is to protect the puck, score goals, use your body to protect it, not give it away. If you give it away, you gotta fight tooth and nail to get it back. And that requires a level of intensity and commitment that is fundamental to playing the game.
How
You say
old
you're
are
very-
your kids?
I've got a 9-year-old son that's obsessed with hockey, and that was not by design. Obviously I've spent my life in it. I work in it. I wasn't sure that I also wanted to spend my evenings and weekends in it. But life has a funny sense of humor. He didn't want to play golf. He didn't want to play soccer or baseball. He got a sniff. And then as he got a little bit older, I think he had an awareness of what I did finally, because I don't really talk about it. I do so many other things in my life now. It's just like that's part of who I am, but it's just it's almost like I said to you guys, it feels like a lifetime. It feels like a different person, honestly. It really does. So I didn't spend a lot of time. Then his curiosity killed the cat. He just had to have it once he started to realize it. And then, he's around the rink, and then he'd hear people speak to me because around the rink people know me, and then they would ask me questions and different things. So I think his curiosity level has just gone through the roof. But at the same time, it's been the most incredible thing for me to go on this journey with him and just, see the passion that he attacks it with, and the level of commitment that he has already. And the joy, because that's the other thing. Like, I'm not looking to raise a bunch of robots, and I see a lot of that in the coaching and generally just in sports. Because I don't know, I think the education sometimes lacks the context of like how you're supposed to play it, and just seeing him, increasing his intensity level and just owning his own process, where he's not doing it for me, and like I could care less. I tell him all the time, but if he wants it and he's going to show that he wants it, I'm gonna follow him all the way to the finish line, wherever that may be.
So, what's your opinion on how the sport has evolved with travel teams and year round and all that stuff compared to when you were growing up?
Well, it's challenging, and especially like here in the greater Nashville area. We don't play intra-city games on a Tuesday and Thursday night. We travel to tournaments, we play local tournaments, but we don't have local games that we play. I'm part of a small group right now trying to fix that here. And I think that'll make it a lot easier. You look at the state of Minnesota and the great job that they've done with hockey. And I don't know why every state doesn't model it. It doesn't make any sense to me. If there's a state that loves the game, I mean, that high school program where it's funded, the costs are low. Local associations are well funded. It's not they've got the costs down. They've got enough buildings where it's accessible, and then they feed you all the way through. It's so natural to play it for your high school team, right? And just it's just a great model. So I think just if you're gonna go, you try to spend time in the spaces where you've got the access, and then hopefully you can have a system that keeps the costs down by allowing you to play more locally and things, and then just pray you get great coaching. I mean, that's the main thing too. The association my son is part of is amazing. It's got incredible skill development coaches, and then some guys like myself that I think spend a lot of time on systems and process and mindset. So it's a well-rounded approach. And then unfortunately, or the kids love it, but unfortunately, we end up having to travel and play a lot of tournaments. So it's just kind of can be a little bit cumbersome for people, I think, to really advance in the game. It's a big time and money constraint.
I know a lot of kids with basketball and baseball will do multi-sports, and we've seen a lot of pros that we've talked to. They've done multi-sports to help work the different muscles and all that as you grow. What's your thought in hockey in multi-sports, or is it too hard to do that because you got to have ice time always?
The biggest problem is that I think everyone thinks that you have to be a 12-month the year athlete to be good at anything. You're like, oh, my kid can't afford to miss the time. Well, I didn't put my son in anything this summer. There's a couple of like week-long camps and different things. We still haven't signed him up because it's interesting what happens when boredom creeps in. All of a sudden, like, they're doing different things, and he's not really even asking. So in a lot of ways, I'm like, okay, well, let's go play tennis, let's go play pickleball, let's go play golf, let's go over to the soccer field, let's go throw a baseball outside, let's go hit a baseball, let's work on our hand-eye, these different ways. I think the best athletes are the ones that are multifaceted, the ones that learn how to do all the things and do them, be athletic, like truly athletic, not single sport athletic, like
Right.
truly athletic, play all the racket sports, it's just, and then I think there's something different that can be learned playing an individual sport like golf or tennis versus hockey. You don't have anyone to lean on when you play golf. There are rules and etiquette that requires you to be conscientious of others and of the construct of the game, just the beautiful parts of the game where you have to tell the truth. You've got to remember how many shots you took. You need to be generally mindful of what others are doing around you, and even come outside of yourself to say, hey, great shot, or hey, like, oh man, better luck next time, whatever it might be. Like, there's just so many more lessons that we can learn by diversifying our children's experience, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And just so you know, kids need 3 months off a year to recover, not at one time, but a week here, 2 weeks there, a long
Sure.
weekend. Parents are afraid to do it, and that's leading to so many more
Yeah.
surgeries and injuries
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
more
overuse.
is not better when it
No.
comes.
No, it's not. And you know, you need to go to the beach. It's important to go to the beach.
Yeah.
You're not a 9-year-old like professional athlete. You're a child. You know, so you need to go fishing. You need to get away and just have some stillness. And you know, hopefully you got parents that can stay off their devices, because that's the other thing. Like, I think we as parents, we see so much. There's so much fear mongering. Like, oh shoot, well I've seen all this stuff today. Like, I better enroll them in this thing. Just keep them busy, keep them moving, because in a lot of ways, I don't know what to do with them if they're not busy. You know,
Right.
they have an appetite for things. Kids need to move. Yeah, they need stuff to do. You leave them sitting around, they're going to make a lot of bad decisions. So I mean, you can overactivity them. That's a big responsibility for the parents too. Like a taxi driver, let them be bored. Like boredom is the greatest gift. I would kill to be bored today. Like, I have so much to do. I have no time for boredom. But if I did, I sure as heck would. I'd spend more time with God. I would spend more time with a dear friend. I would spend more time just, you know, being still in the world. I'd care for my body in a way that made tomorrow better for me. You know, just different things that you can do if you're not in that sort of busy and hurry up mindset all the time. Boredom is imperative for children.
Absolutely.
Hey, from a coaching perspective, do you ever have, parents that come up to you and say, "Hey, could you take it a little easier on my son?" You ever have that? You ever have these
You know, Ronnie,
discussions?
you ask an awesome question, and it's actually the contrary. I realize now
Oh,
that
yeah?
I am delivering truths that they are not receiving at home. And the parents, they almost don't even know what to do, because they thank you, but I think we've like unequipped parents in a way to be that type of voice. So that's where a coach has a really incredible opportunity. I'm very positive as a coach, but I also am not going to sit around and let the inmates run the asylum. If you're going to show up late, you're going to sit on the bench for the first 5 minutes and watch practice. If you're not competing, you're going to sit on. I don't want to play around. Like, don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste your parents' time. We have an hour, and we need to get the most out of it in practice. So show up with the right mindset, and let's not pretend we're hockey players.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We're coming up on an hour, Andy. And normally we have like a walk-off 10 like quick questions, but before we do that, I can't help myself. Can you tell me real quick a little bit about your time on Long Island? Playing at Nassau Coliseum.
I love my time there, and I'm not just saying that. I met some people there that are lifelong friends. The Islanders were great to me. You know, my last season there was probably my best season in hockey, to be honest. I played amazingly well, and I have such a sweet spot there for the people too. I don't need to tell you, New Yorkers. New Yorkers don't let you in quickly, but when they do, you're like in for life. And that's what I would say is different. Like, I lived in California for a long time. Californians let you in quickly, but you can just get in. You can ski. You're on the surface always. It doesn't often go deeper than that. But New Yorkers, I feel like it's a lot more. There's a lot more depth that you can experience once you get to know New Yorkers and they let you in. So I loved my time there. Nassau Coliseum was old, but like
Yeah.
these old barns they're so classic and nostalgic. And then that association always, the boys were always around. The old boys were always around. So you got to sit and talk with Trotz, and you got to sit and talk with Gillies, and you got to sit and talk with all these guys. And it was an awesome place to play.
Okay. Well, that's good. Love to hear it. All right, Eric. I know, again, we're coming up on the
All
hour.
right. So I'm going to ask you 10 true, false, or one word answer questions. All right.
Let's do it. All right, let's do it.
All right. So, okay.
See you, Eric.
True, false.
Coming, Eric?
I got it. True or false? You've practiced a celly in the mirror before a game.
False. These
All right.
kids need to stop with the sellies, man. They need to stop with the sellies. They need to stop trying to do the Michigan. They need to play the game the right way and stop worrying about the celebration. I tell them all the time, if you score a goal, everyone already knows you scored. Like we don't need to go further. And your first response should be, who made that great pass? Where are my teammates to celebrate this? It shouldn't be about you. So that's another hot button for me as a coach.
All right, one word answer. Worst chirp you've ever heard.
Man, gosh, I don't know. There was so much chirping going on for a really long time. I can't think of anything top of mind, honestly. But guys always like to call you a PUSSY. That was a big one in my day. They throw you out now and cancel you if you say it now. But I think there's definitely relevance for calling someone a scrotum or a testy instead. I mean, they're a lot more sensitive. You flick that thing, you watch what happens.
All right, true or false? You've blamed bad ice for your own mistake.
Never. There's no one harder on me than me, I can assure you.
All right, one word, pregame meal.
Pre-game meal, I was always, when I was, I wasn't eating gluten even back when I was playing, but like a super high protein. I had like this quinoa pasta that I would do. It had all kinds of stuff in it. It was a bowl like a giant dog would eat out of. I would eat probably like 1,500 calories. That was some toast, and I don't know, man. You were always stuffing yourself when you were playing for sure.
All right, true, false. You've ever pretended not to hear the coach calling your.
Never. You got to be a pleaser, man. You got to be attentive to what's going on with your coach for sure.
All right. Toughest NHL arena to play in.
Philadelphia, especially as an Islander.
Yeah. Most underrated hockey skill.
I would say these days it's probably the ability to separate somebody from the puck. I watch like the Toronto Maple Leafs defensive zone. It looks like a horse and pony show. Nobody pins anybody or hits anybody or separates anybody from the puck. So I think if you can get in there and use your body to be physical and actually like invoke some fear and separate somebody from the puck, you're going to be courted by every team in the world.
True or false? You've watched your own highlights more than once.
I would say that's probably true. And I get people to send me things all the time, especially that expert video from the playoffs in Ottawa. So there are a few I can't live down.
Oh, that's the one you said. You call them. You're not an expert, right? That's the one.
Oh yeah, it's a whole thing.
Hockey smell you weirdly like. Tape, gloves, lock.
I mean, I love it all. If I'm honest with you, I mean all the smells are like just such a part of the experience. So like you can put any one of them in front of me, and it's going to bring me back in a heartbeat.
All right, and bonus. What's your thoughts on Happy Gilmore?
I love Happy Gilmore, man. That's what do you mean? It's like he's an icon. Yeah, he's an icon. Adam Sandler's arguably the funniest man alive, I would say.
I agree.
Is he actually a Bruins fan in real life? Because he's a New Yorker, I know that. But
yeah, I don't know. I don't really know if he's a Bruins fan or not.
Well, maybe not. I know he did the draft and presented for them.
I thought because I know. As far as I know, he's a Jets fan. He's a Knicks fan, but I think hockey actually he's a Bruins fan, which I don't know how you do that, but that's okay. Yeah. But hey, Andy, appreciate it. Thank you very much for your time. This was awesome.
Yeah, likewise, guys. Yeah, be well, guys. Talk to you soon. Take it easy.
Take care.